All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to, Lisa's just joining us now. Welcome to the January 4th, sadly back on Zoom, but better safe than sorry. So welcome. And also welcome to our guest, Bill Humber. He'll be, not that most of us know who Bill is anyway, but Bill's going to be our speaker this morning. So he'll be more properly introduced in a little bit. John, I believe you have our invocation this morning.
I do. As we gather here today as members of Rotary, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build. With confidence, let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, John. Our land acknowledgement of the municipality of Clarington is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga and Chippewas, known today as the Williams Treaty First Nations. The work on these lands acknowledges the resilience and longstanding contributions to the area now known as the municipality of Clarington. Pauline, do we have any birthdays or anniversaries today?
President Amy, we are starting off the new year with one birthday, and that's Camille. Camille Cook is celebrating on Saturday. So happy birthday, Camille.
Very good. With that cute little baby of hers. All right. So that didn't take very long. So Joe, I think you're going to properly introduce Bill for us.
I am, and as you said, he needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. First of all, we have to thank Bill for getting his presentation together at the very last minute. We were to have Angie Darlinson, whom most of us know as the longtime executive director of the Bowmanville Older Adults Association. She has a new posting with the Lake Ridge Community Support Services, but the person who was supposed to be appearing with her, it turns out it was not available because of something about a virus that has been going around. But as it turns out, I had Bill booked when we found out that it was announced over the holidays that he'd won the, I don't know if win is, or he'd been awarded as a member of the Order of Canada. I reached out to him and we arranged to do something on February 4th. When we started thinking about spring training and things like that. But as it turns out, we needed somebody the day before. So I called him yesterday and he said, sure, I'll do it. He put it together really quickly. And for those of you who don't know, he is this country's leading baseball historian and author, a member of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, also, as it happens, an environmentalist and the secretary of Valleys 2000 and the Jury Lands Foundation, which has been working to preserve and rejuvenate Camp 30, which is the POW camp on Lambs Road. And it was announced over the holidays that Bill has become a member of the Order of Canada. Congratulations, Bill, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So how did you find out that, how does one, oh, sorry, applause. There was no sound. All of a sudden I looked up. How does one find out that you became like an Order of Canada? Do they call you up? Do they send you an email? Does Governor General give you a call? How does it work?
Well, it's a member of the Governor General's staff. Late September, I got an inquiry from them. They said they wanted to speak to me, and I assumed I have a bit of a reputation, not as Canada's leading expert in COVID, but in baseball, that they wanted to ask my opinion about perhaps a potential, I don't know if the right word is inductee member. I thought, well, maybe it's somebody like a Larry Walker, for sake of argument. Given that he went into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, he would be an ideal candidate. But the next day I phoned them, or they phoned me, I should say, and the first words out of their mouth were congratulations. So I assumed I was on track for recognition by the Order of Canada. So it was kind of stunning, actually, I guess. You know, as you mentioned, I was inducted into Canada's Baseball Hall of Fame, which I at the time I thought was a bridge too far, but the bridge just keeps getting longer. It's like that one that connects Prince Edward Island, I guess, to the mainland. You know, there's no limit to how long the spans can be. And so I was obliged to keep quiet about it, which is pretty difficult for me. for 3 months. I could tell families, so they were all duly informed. And of course, on the 29th, they made the announcement of the, I believe, 135 people that will be recognized. The one final piece of it, Joe, was they said they did send out a questionnaire about a month before and said, they gave you a list of preferences for, because not only do you receive a little lapel pin, and I did flash it up there, I think you can see, but they also give you a big honking medal as well. And they said, would you like it mailed to you? That was the one end of the range. The other was the ceremony at Rideau Hall. I went with the ceremony. What the heck? Who knows, though, when that might happen.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's soon. We should mention that there's another Clarington resident who also got
Yes.
Order of Canada, Ken Knox of Knox Pumpkin Farms. He's also a horse breeder and was made a lot of improvements in agriculture, and he was given the Order of Canada. I had also reached out to him, but he said he was unavailable, and we'll see if we could speak to him somewhere down the line. So you've written how many books? The release said 12 books. They're all on they're not all on baseball, are they?
No, I've as you say, I've done 12. I've got a 13th in the works with a publisher in New Jersey about soccer, which has a lot of material actually about Darlington Soccer League, a woman who played soccer out of this municipality as well. But 5 of the books I've done are on baseball. A couple of books that have a Bowmanville theme. One of them is actually about Bowmanville and bicycling, Black athletes in Canada, winter sports. I've tried to be diverse in my interests.
And what is it about baseball that has made you such a devotee and a researcher and all that?
Well, it was kind of an early fascination, love, I guess you could say. My father came out to Canada after the war and had no background at all in baseball. He grew up with cricket and soccer, obviously. But he saw that in the 1950s, I was born in 49 myself, he saw in the 1950s, baseball was huge in Toronto. They were drawing upwards of 500,000 fans a year to the old Maple Leaf Stadium on Front Street in Toronto. And so that's where he took us in the summertime, my brother and I. And my endearing memory of it all, and I have many, but my endearing memory is the last game of the season in 1958, the Leafs were to play a doubleheader. And so we were all excited about looking forward to what I would like to say was 18 innings of baseball, but was probably 2 7-inning games. But regardless, by the 4.5 innings had gone by in the first game, Toronto was leading. The rival team, probably Rochester, had its 5 at-bats, and the rain, the skies opened, and all we ended up seeing was 4.5 innings of baseball. And I was just about to turn 9 at the time. And, my brother and I were distraught. And so my father called the Toronto Maple Leafs and said, well, is there anything you can do for the little fella? He's sitting here crying his eyes out. And they said, well, bring the little guy down to the ballpark tomorrow. And they did. My dad did. And the Toronto Maple Leafs gave me this autographed baseball of the 1958 Toronto Maple Leafs, which has the distinction actually of 2 autographs. It has a lot of autographs, but 2 of them are notable in baseball history. One of them is Dixie Walker, who was kind of the villain of the movie 42, if you recall. He was the one who objected to Jackie Robinson's presence with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. And the other is Rocky Nelson, who was a kind of a great hero of baseball here, and whose misplay, I guess that would be the right word, in the 1960 World Series made it possible for Bill Mazeroski to come up to bat in the 9th inning and hit the game-winning home run that allowed the Pirates to win the World Series. So a little bit of baseball is tied up in that particular ball that I received in 1958.
Amazing. And we should, for people who don't know, you and I know, but the Toronto Maple Leafs were a AAA, which is like the top minor league team of the before they went out of business. And then the Blue Jays came. Who were they? They were the farm teams for a number of different major league teams, like Cincinnati and Boston and Cleveland, I think. Who you remember?
Yeah, they were notably owned in the 1950s by Jack Kent Cooke. And Cooke, of course, eventually got frustrated in his attempt to get Major League Baseball in Toronto. Apparently, they offered him a franchise, and he would have had to have paid $2.5 million. Had he have taken the offer at that time, that franchise would probably be worth about $2.5 billion. But he thought it was too much, and because he could load up his team with semi-professional or professional ball players, and then sell them off a year after they'd had a great season, Rocky Nelson being one, to highest bidders at Major League Baseball. But over the years, they were affiliated. The last team they were affiliated with was the Boston Red Sox. But over the years, they were briefly affiliated with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Milwaukee Braves even. So those teams would occasionally come to Toronto and actually play exhibition games at Old Maple Leaf Stadium.
So let's talk baseball, a little bit more baseball. How deep do the roots of baseball go in Canada? You have a bunch of pictures that you wanted to lead us through, and they go way back.
Absolutely. I'm just, I've got my, can I do screen share with you folks?
Yeah, screen share, the old challenge of screen share. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I will bring up the image. Does that image come through?
Not yet.
No. Oh, okay. Let me just go down to screen share screen. Good. There it is. Okay. Now it should come up. Well, it should come up, says he optimistically.
There we go.
And there we are. Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. So I only have a few slides here. And this should show from the beginning. There we are. This is an intriguing one. This is actually the actual words in the actual diary of a guy named Eli Plater. Eli Plater was a tavern keeper in what was then York, today's Toronto. And he actually wrote a diary piece about playing ball in Toronto. I'd ask people to speculate on what year that might have been. Anybody want to take a stab at what possible year that could have been in Toronto? They were playing baseball on the streets of the city. Yell it out if you want to go on mute.
1840.
1840. Wow, you're way off.
About 1900.
1900. Yeah, you're even farther off. You're getting colder. 1803. 1803. And intriguingly enough, there's a piece in the Belden Atlas for those who have the Northumberland and Durham Belden Atlas that references a game of ball that was played on the farm of what became Leonard Soper's farm in near Port Hope. And that was also in 1803. And it turns out Eli Plater and the guy who was the magistrate over the Court of Quarter Sessions, I believe it was in Northumberland at that time, Durham, were brothers-in-law. So I have a fairly good sense that this playing ball, and that's the blown up version of it, as you can see from the diary of Plater in 1803, gives you an idea of how old the game is. I make the argument that, in fact, baseball, despite what people like to think, that it was a game developed in the United States and somehow in a form of cultural imperialism imposed on Canadians. In fact, we were part of the process of developing the modern game. That all of the steps in the game becoming what we know today from its very folk game origins. And when I say folk game, I'm really talking about the kinds of things we might have played as kids, the kind of innocent, games like tag, hide and seek, etc., which have no real formality other than the fact that, one generation plays them to the next generation. And such was the case with baseball until the 19th century. And this is an early box score. In fact, the earliest box score, we have a baseball actually involving a team from Bowmanville. And the team was the Live Oaks. They played the Mechanics of Port Hope. And these names were appropriate because these were all working people in the municipality, or what then passed for Bowmanville and Port Hope. The name on the Live Oaks at the top, which looks like Chinny or Chinny if you look at it, is actually supposed to be Climby. And he was, of course, the eventual editor of the Canadian Statesman. The name on the Mechanics side that's interesting is Addy, misspelled by the person who wrote in the books in the box score, but indeed it is this guy, Bob Addy, who appears in the center of the picture on the right. And Bob Addy was a teammate actually of the great Al Spalding, who gave us, of course, all the sporting goods that we know to this day. So this is from 1861, pretty early. In fact, we don't even have Canadian Statesmen before 1868. So this appeared actually in the New York Clipper And the Clipper was the dominant sports publication of its day. And I think what happened is they got so frustrated, the ball players, that nobody was writing up their games in the local papers. They sent it off to New York in the hope that it would get published there. And sure enough, it did.
Look at the score.
Oh yeah, there were no gloves. So you know, I mean, you basically had to field the ball with your hands.
It was 66 to 38. That was the
well, not only that, but you as the batter could designate where you wanted the ball thrown, and it even went further. The pitcher had to throw the ball underhand, and not with the underhand motion we associate with softball today, but a lob ball effectively was what it was. So these are just like 3 accounts of how early baseball was in Canada. The one in New Brunswick is from 1869, but it actually refers to a game, if you were to read down the page, on the 4th day of May, 1793. And if you were to go actually from 4 lines from the bottom, they were playing baseball. The one next to it is from a training day, militia muster day in Hamilton. This is when the locals would get out and march about a bit, learn how to shoot a gun. But basically, it was an excuse to drink in the afternoon. And then, as you can see, 4 lines from the bottom, to play baseball. This is 1819. And the one on the immediate right, or on the far right, is the baseball game in Beachville, Ontario, also on the 4th of June, 1838. And the 4th of June is significant in Canadian history for a number of reasons, one of which it was the celebration of George III's birthday. And George III, if you know anything about American history, may be one of the most hated men in US history, because he was the king against whom they rebelled. Later history has since put more blame on the British Parliament for not recognizing the Americans' interest in having some form of legislative representation. But in this case, by 1838, George III was much hated in the United States, much loved in Canada, because he was an excuse to go out and get drunk and play baseball. Can you think of a jollier purpose in life? So this is the first newspaper account, and this is even more amazing. It was of a murder, actually in Lower Canada, Quebec today, committed in 1838, and validates these early stories of baseball in Canada. But it appeared in William Lyon Mackenzie's newspaper out of Rochester. And of course, Mackenzie was the leader of the failed rebellion of 1837, who, fortunate for him, he managed to get out of the country before they caught him, because no doubt he would have been executed, and actually published this in his newspaper in Rochester as I say, in 1838. Quite extraordinary. I just discovered this one recently. And of course, Mackenzie eventually came back to Toronto and became mayor of the city. So, I guess old times were forgotten, at some point. This will give you a bit of an idea of what a baseball diamond might have looked like in those days. As you can see, the first bye is pretty close to the home bye, where the batter might have stood, because they wanted you to get on base. All of the fun of the game was when the player got on base, you actually could retire him by picking up the ball, and it was a very soft ball in those days, and tossing it at him. And if you hit him between bases, he was out, perhaps, more figuratively than anything else. But if you made it to the second bye and the third bye and the fourth bye, you still weren't home. You had to make it to effectively what would have been the 5th home base, or the home base in those days. And the New York game, which would come along in the mid 1850s, changed all of that. It brought in the harder ball, and a harder ball, of course, meant for a speedier game, a game that required more skill on the part of fielders to grab the ball, could be hit farther, brought the outfield into play, etc. What you have on your right is actually the first box score we have of the baseball game in Canada, in London, Ontario, between London and, when I showed this to my students at one time, they all thought Delaware was somewhere in the United States. If you know anything about Delaware, it's a little, in effect, burg out at that time outside of London, Ontario, now part of London. And okay, baseball spread like mad in Canada. It was extraordinarily popular. At the top, and again, I don't like reading what you can all read yourself, but I love this little comment above. It says, we hear it mooted that a number of young ladies in town intend organizing a baseball club under the cognomen of the Female Athletes. We presume the secretary of the Maple Leaf Club will only be too happy to take charge of its management. This was 1872. That's how early women had got involved in baseball. Below that is the box score, the first ever game played in Canada, 1859, under what became known as the New York rules. In the upper right-hand corner is a picture of a jolly crew of the Guelph Maple Leafs, the dominant team of baseball in Canada in the early 1870s. And the one below is the most fascinating one of all, and this I only discovered recently. It was from the London Free Press. It was 1869, and it talks about Emancipation Day. And it refers to the, as they say it in those days, the colored population of London every year signify their remembrance of the emancipation of their race in Jamaica and never fail to make a good and loyal display. And then at the bottom, it talks about some of the things that they did on the day. And as you can see at the bottom, a baseball match formed part of the celebration. So this is 1869, 4 years after the American Civil Wars ended. We know there was a large Black population that had come into Canada on the Underground Railroad through the United States. I've often wondered, the Underground Railroad become the Underground Railway when it reached Canada? We do call rail lines by different names up here than they do in the United States. And this wasn't the only instance of baseball. I found upwards of 5 all Black baseball teams. What would go on to form in the United States would form things like the Negro Leagues, which have recently been recognized by Major League Baseball for the statistics compiled by players who played in those leagues, who were, of course, forbidden until 1947 to play Major League Baseball. This is all part of this extraordinary history of the game. So that takes me to the end of my screen sharing and provides you with a bit of background on the history of baseball in Canada. As Joe mentioned, I'm a big fan historically of the old Toronto Maple Leaf baseball team. This is their program from 1951. It's just arrived in the mail, by the way, the other day. I'm a big fan of eBay. I find all this nonsense on eBay, and it's one marvelous way of kind of resurrecting one's past, as it were. It's also, maybe I shouldn't tell this to people here because, you know, you may all go to eBay and start doing this, but I collect old postcards of Bowmanville too. I've got about 70 of them. And it's a great source for finding that kind of history of the municipality. The one final card, I don't have it with me here right now, I got was a 1912 postcard from Toronto of the old Hanlon's Point ballpark, which is the ballpark that preceded Maple Leaf Stadium. It was on Hanlon's Point. It was owned by a guy named Lol Solman, who also owned the ferry service to the island. So he made a buck a couple of ways, both to get to the island, you had to take his ferry. And then once you got there, you went to his ballpark. And that's where Babe Ruth hit his one and only minor league home run in 1914. But the postcard I have, it's kind of a really neat card because on the back, the woman who wrote it to a friend in Rochester said, "This is a card of the ballpark. I go there quite often." I thought it was such a kind of a poignant comment from someone who's long since gone. So, Joe, back to you, back to the audience.
I just have one more question for you.
Sure.
And that is that, you know, baseball, those guys were mostly, you know, I don't know, millwrights and they own, I don't know, whatever, doctors or whatever they happen to be. But now, you know, baseball players are making 20, 30 million and more. The average baseball team I was reading is worth in Major League Baseball 1.9 billion, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in that order. Yep.
And everyone keeps saying, "Oh, baseball's a dying, you know, it's a dying sport. It's no longer an American or Canadian pastime." But that's not quite true when you take a look, I guess, at the numbers that are thrown around. Why do you think baseball had such an enduring love from people?
Well, there's a number of factors. One, obviously, it's an entrenched game. One could say, why is cricket popular today when a international test match goes 5 days? Who would want to sit around for 5 days to see a match that, in cricket's case, often ended in what was called a draw? And a draw didn't really mean a tie. What it really meant was that the other team, the losing team, didn't get all of its official at bats. In other words, in cricket, you have to retire the entire side. You have 2 innings to do it, but a player could score 100 runs. Well, I think similarly, baseball developed that entrenched character in the 19th century in North America, spread quickly to places like Cuba and Japan, and has a kind of an enduring quality to it that people identify. They like the delays in the game. They like the slow moments. I don't know if they like all of the slow moments. That may be a factor that weighs against it today. But I think in large measure, it has an entrenched history, and it has a history that you can go back to 100 years ago. You can go back to a Babe Ruth or whomever, and their accomplishment has some meaning today. You can't really do that with any other sport. The other sports have changed so radically over the years. I mean, you look at the National Basketball Association, which started in 1946. Hard to believe, but they actually banned Black players from the NBA when it started. I mean, you just look at those things and say, no wonder it was a different game. It was a very different game. Whereas baseball has kept that character pretty well intact. One could argue that there are profound changes in the game today with relief pitchers, and the old notion of 9-man lineups has changed as well. But still, basically, it's still 90 feet between bases. So much of the quality of the game remains what it has always been.
Yeah. I'll just throw it open. And any questions for Bill? No.
Well, actually, Bill is Lyle. I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
The Order of Canada. That's absolutely wonderful. Well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, one does a lot of, and you folks would know this, you do a lot of things in life. You have a long portfolio of accomplishments you like to think of. And sometimes it's the pumpkins and the baseball that get you recognized, and who knows, but it's always been, a fascination of mine, the game. And what I people say, what was the best idea you ever had in your life, Bill? And I said, well, I let's get beyond the personal and the family, et cetera, because if I were to ignore that, I would be in deep, trouble. And having said that, I said that the best idea outside I had of personal and family things was when I started at Seneca College in the late 70s. I thought, it's kind of amazing. We offer courses on just about everything. And I said, I'm a big baseball fan. I got to believe there's other people out there that are baseball fans as well. I'm going to offer a course, and I'm going to call it Baseball Spring Training for Fans. In other words, the players go to Florida to get ready for the season. What do the fans do? Well, they're going to take my course at Seneca College. And a week before the class was to start, I had 3 people signed up, and I thought, it was a brilliant idea, but obviously it was a stupid idea. Well, there's a little mention in the Globe and Mail, a squib really, with a phone number. On Monday, the phone exploded with people calling me. It was almost, and as one guy said when he came out to the first meeting, he said, I've often wondered what an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting must be like. But now, having come to this baseball class, I think I've discovered it.
And you continued to do these online, and I took in a few last year, and I hope to take in a bunch when it starts again. They're really great. So I just before you leave, I want to, we can't let you go without, John, you have a question?
John has a question.
Bill, I'm actually from Scotland.
Right.
And strangely, baseball never really took on in Scotland. But as a child, we used to play a game that we called rounders.
Yep.
And strangely, it had the same bases as baseball does. But any idea why it never really took off in Scotland or the UK for that matter?
Yeah, I think there is a very good reason. And that's because there were a variety of bat and ball games that were played up until the 18th century. Stool ball, northern spell, variations of rounders, variations of baseball for that matter, and cricket gained primacy as the dominant bat and ball game in the 18th century. And that meant that every other bat and ball game essentially became, for want of a better term, child's play. If you were a mature adult, you played cricket, you didn't play any of the other games. Whereas in North America, there were less restrictions, I guess, on what you could play and what you could develop. Hence it developed. Now, there is one exception to that in Britain, and that's a little phenomenon called Welsh baseball. And in Wales, they actually have a game, bat and balls, bases essentially, a 2-inning game. And it is an old carryover of those rounders, stool ball, et cetera, type games that did flourish and did become an adult sport and is still played to this day.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Ron, you have a question?
Yeah, I do actually. And Bill, thank you very much for your presentation, because it's been great to hear your stories. One thing I'm kind of curious about, if you've done any research into it, baseball is sort of the background behind one of the more notorious events in
Yes.
Toronto history, the Christie Pitts riots. You're familiar with it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What impact did that have on baseball in Toronto?
In the larger sense, I don't know if it had a great impact. The Christie Pitts riots, for those who are unfamiliar with them, there was a baseball game played at what is today Christie Pitts. I think it was called Willowvale Park in those days. It was a Jewish team playing another team, and a number of what were described in the papers as local toughs came out and began taunting the Jewish players. This is about 1936, and displaying Nazi slogans and making Nazi comments. And a riot broke out. And in fact, the ball players on the other team actually joined the Jewish players and fought against the local toughs who'd come out to hassle them. And it was headline news in the paper. Whether that affected people in the long term in terms of their baseball enthusiasm, hard for me to say. But certainly at the time, it was an extraordinary event. And it actually was kind of a symbolic way in which the non-Jewish population, many of the shopkeepers, et cetera, in the area, joined with the local Jewish population, many of whom were from the Kensington Market area of Toronto, and joined in the rabble rousing that occurred. It was quite a fascinating event.
I guess we're almost out of time, but Bill, as long as we have you here, you are secretary of the Jury Lands, and I think there's some new developments. What's happening with that? The Jury Lands, of course, I guess a segue from the war. You know that?
Yes, it is. Of course, the Jury Lands sit on the property better known to most people as Camp 30, but was also the boys' training school, basically for in the 1920s when it was set up for young delinquents. I often tell the story that if you robbed a candy bar from a local store, you had a pretty good chance of going to Bowmanville. If you killed your parents, you weren't going to Bowmanville. You were a tougher client than Bowmanville could handle. But the buildings, of course, have been in private landowners' hands for over 10 years now. Recently, the municipality has signed an agreement with the landowner. The Jury Lands Foundation is a hands-off, in effect, foundation of local citizens led by Marilyn Morowitz, our president. And it is now going to be charged with assuming one of the buildings on the site as the site gradually over the years transitions to in effect public ownership or a public park. Buildings will come on stream and will be the project, and that's the best way to put it, of the Jury Lands Foundation to raise funds, to get sweat equity, to find support and other means of bringing those places back to life, and then intelligently reusing them for uses very similar to something like I don't know. There's a number of examples in Toronto that one could think of. The old Gooderham Work site is probably the best known of those places. To reuse them in such a way that they make economic sense, but also preserve what have deep and abiding memories for some people, have less and more tragic associations for other people, but nevertheless are part of the story of not just Bowmanville, but part of the story of Canada.
Yeah, let's hope those move forward, and we'll Rotary will certainly take an interest in that. Amy, do you want me to pass it back to you?
Yeah.
We
Is
have
there any
sort of-
other, do we have any other questions for Bill while we still have him? There's a lot of information about baseball. That was fantastic, though. Thanks very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you,
more
Bill.
than welcome to stay on the call if you want, Bill. We've got a little bit more business to attend to. If you need to drop off, that's fine too. Please say hi to Kathy and Happy New Year.
I will. And just to follow up on Joe's comment, this will be the 44th year that we've done baseball spring training for fans. We are doing it on Zoom. There's no cost. So if anybody wants to join us in February, we've already lined up Denny Boucher and Dan Schulman as part of this year's roster of notable personalities. So thank you very much for giving me the time for a little plug.
Thanks, Bill.
Excellent. And congratulations again. Well deserved.
Many thanks.
Okay, so do we have any happy bucks? New year, anybody happy? No, not all at once. Thanks, Steve.
I'll throw one out there. It's fantastic to see Lyle back after 6 months. We made mention of it before, but good to see your smiling face on the meeting, Lyle. And I'll catch us up on the dollars once we get in person again.
Well, I should throw in a few as well to be back. So there's 20 happy bucks there.
Very
Good
good.
to see you all again.
Oh, hi, Pauline. I see you.
Well, as much as I hate the fact that we can't have an in-person meeting, I sure was happy to have that extra half hour in bed this morning.
Yeah, not gonna lie, when I looked out and saw my car, I was kind of glad I didn't have to go out and scrape that off first thing. Any other happy bucks? All right.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had our daughter was home from Holland for 2 weeks over the holidays, which was quite wonderful. It's really, really nice when you have your adult kid, young adult kids, I guess, come home to spend a couple of weeks with you, and it was wonderful to sort of get to know her as a young adult. That, you know, thinking of her as a teenager, and she's not that anymore, and she might be moving home, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, that was really nice to have that time spent with her after not seeing her for so many months.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to throw this over to Ron Collis, who's going to do a little community report for us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy. Just want to, there it is here. I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see the thing? Okay, good. It's always good to check there. Okay, so Joe asked me to talk about the Public Image Committee, what has been happening, aka the Public Relations Committee. Just the members of the committee are myself, Lloyd, Rebecca, Jennifer, and John. This committee sort of had a couple of starts and stops. Lloyd was originally the chair. He had to step down. I took over in October, and I have like about 8 months to chair this committee, and then Rebecca takes over with the new regime and at the end of June there. So it's probably wise of the powers that be that give me just a little leash to do things. So let me just tell you what the committee's been up to. We kind of wanted to moving forward, focus on two elements of PR or public image here, promoting to our members and promoting to the public, obviously. Really encourage by highlighting upcoming meetings and highlighting meetings in general to encourage attendance, and also when it comes to promoting to public, highlight topics from past meetings, emphasizing emphasize the contribution that Rotary has made, and various aspects of that. So the focus that we're taking is sort of highlight the value of our weekly meetings. With COVID comes an opportunity, a unique opportunity that we hadn't had in the past, and that's the fact that we're recording our meetings. And Steve had the foresight of uploading our meetings to YouTube, and we have on our YouTube channel a huge swath of our meetings from throughout the pandemic. And it's a really actually pretty incredible resource. So hats off to you, Steve, for actually having the foresight to do this. We probably, most clubs I don't think are doing this, especially in the conversations that I've had with them. And what we're trying to do in the—
Ron, I'm not sure I can take credit for that. It may have been a joint decision. So hats off to the club.
Okay. Very good. Anyways, we're building on that. Okay, we're building on what we have there. And what I encourage everyone to do is subscribe to our Bowmanville Rotary channel. We have 15 subscribers thus far. We should have a whole lot more, and we're going to build on that, because it really does allow you, if you've missed a meeting or you want to see parts of what's happened in a meeting that you've attended, it's all there. So in the last couple months, we've edited uploaded videos, removing some of the delays, glitches, to enhance the meeting viewing experience of the recorded videos there. We're also featuring key presentations that take place at our meetings, and promote that to the community, to the probably Durham community mainly. And we've been creating these trailers or promo pieces that are designed to grab the attention of the audience, encourage people to click on the full meetings or the full presentations that actually have taken place at these meetings. And we're asking community influencers associated with the theme of the meeting to help promote these trailers. What I mean by engaging community influencers to disseminate our message, these are people in the community who are active on social media with a large-ish following. Their response, and we're asking them to actually do some of the postings if we have something that sort of is connected with the types of things that their followers are interested in. And excuse me. And so that's sort of the way in which we're trying to develop the interest in what's going on in the club here. And we tried this as a pilot in November with one of the presentations that took place in November, Dr. Lenga from Lake Ridge Health, who talked about the epic transformation of the record keeping there. And this is what the promo kind of looks like. I'm just going to play a short period of this, because it does run about 3 minutes. I don't want to use that up, but this will give you an idea of what the trailer is about. Can you hear the sound on that? No.
Yes.
Hold on. Okay. Anyways, there is sound. I don't need to actually. We don't. You can see it though, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, it goes, there's a soundtrack behind it. It talks about, and it goes into a bit of the presentation, and it takes you right through it to the end where there's a way to link to the larger presentation. So it's designed to get people interested in the topic that was talked about. We might do this with, Joe mentioned that Dr. Isaac Bogosh is talking next week. We might do a trailer for that one, and bring that out, find some, and have different influencers promote that video, the trailer video, to get people over to the page there. Oops. Okay, so upcoming for this committee, basically, we're going to be kind of at first assessing the impact of this, developing these trailers, coming up with ways to tweak them, to continually tweak the viewability of the meeting videos that are uploaded, and also work on continually improving the quality of the hybrid meetings, looking into some ways to enhance the sound of the audience there when we return to hybrid. So that is a general, a quick update on what this committee has been up to. And any questions?
You're doing a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Just a comment, Ron. My mother-in-law, who's 93, 94 years old, has watched a lot of these and quite enjoys them.
Great.
She has a tablet with a bit of data, and she goes online and sees what's happening by watching Rotary videos.
That's awesome to hear. That really is good. I think one of the things is that we all hate what's happened with COVID, but there has been some positives, because we're able to now capture. We have the technology to capture these meetings going forward, and continue to do this, and continue to actually improve the quality. There's we don't need to spend money on this, or big money on this at all, because there's ways to do this quite effectively with shoestring budgets. So, and to hear that people are actually enjoying them is fantastic. We can only grow from here. So that's great. Thank you, Lyle.
Yeah, and the silver lining too is things like we can bring in speakers from around the world, and we have, so that would have never happened prior.
Yeah, and exactly, and what Joe has lined up for next week is fantastic. Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, well, before I talk about what's up for next week, you mentioned it. Yeah, there was, at one point we were compiling a list of, I think we called it Friends of Rotary, and they were people who had been sponsors and or volunteers at some of our events, who might like to know about what's been going on sort of on a regular basis. But is that anything happening with that? Do you know?
That's the first I've heard of it, but if anyone does know, that would be actually very helpful for the communication piece because it would be great to be able to send out the link to either the trailer or actual videos of meetings. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. I know Toronto Rotaract has that thing where they send out like a monthly newsletter, I think, to all people who that they've sort of are within their sphere, their community partners and all that stuff. So we have people touching base with people.
Yeah, Wayne?
Ron, a number of years ago, for a few years, we was through the newspaper, of course, which is redundant now, but we profiled new members. And I was wondering if there could be any consideration on new members that come into the Rotary Club that could be profiled through your process.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great point. And one of the initiatives that is going on right now that is actually captured by this is Know Your Rotarian, where which is actually I think it's a fabulous way of getting to know people. The whole process of interviewing, having different people report on other people. And I think that's fantastic, and that is being captured. Now we could actually edit those pieces and put profile pieces on the channel there, where people can actually learn about each of the Rotarians as well. So we can actually take those pieces for sure.
Just so everybody has a frame of reference, I'll tell you that profiling the new Rotarian, I think, stopped before I joined, which is in 2007.
Okay.
It's 2021, 2022.
Whitby Rotary and the Oshawa Rotary Club, on their Facebook page, their Instagram page, and Twitter, every new member, they put a profile on these pages. So we can do the same thing. But anyway, just a piece of information.
Yeah, cool. Good. Any other? Pauline?
Hi, Ron. Many years ago, when we used to send in the mail the blue and gold, all the local libraries used to get a copy. Would there be any benefit in making sure the libraries got the link to the meetings?
Sure. It's so easy just to send out a link.
I just don't know if they would have a use for it, or if it's worth talking to them.
I know they have a website. I don't know whether, I haven't looked at the website recently, but what you actually do raise is there are a number of websites, community websites out there that promote upcoming meetings and things like that. To be able to start encouraging them to post our meetings, meetings that have taken place, I think would be great. This is a resource. You raise a really good point, and the key thing to mention here is that this is an opportunity that we've never had before, and it comes out of COVID. So that's a great idea, and I think we can take that forward there. Thank you, Pauline.
Good. All right. Thanks again, Ron. Like I said, you guys are doing a great job. So,
Steve Kay had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
I put it back down again, but since I'm here, I think it's kind of important to note about announcing new Rotarians. Rachel's done a good job of that, an excellent job of that over the past year and a bit. Every time a new member's joined, they've been promoted on Facebook. If we enhance that, great, but it is being done. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah. Good. Okay, a couple of quick announcements, and then Joe. So because we had to cancel our Christmas party, or postpone our Christmas party, shall we say, till we don't know when, we will still do the 50-50 draw, but we will just have to wait until we can get together in person. We'll make adjustments as need be, but we'll just put that on hold for now. And I just want to remind the board there is a meeting next Wednesday, so please submit any reports to Pauline and myself if possible, or upload them onto Club Runner. Joe, you wanted to just mention next week's meeting?
Yeah, very briefly. I thought, with the last few days, sort of COVID taking over everything, people's lives, and everybody wondering where this is going, it sort of underlies so much of what we do. I thought I'd reach out to a couple of the people who are really prominent in the media and and are well known. And I reached out to a couple of them, and I got a response from Dr. Isaac Bogach. Who I don't, just Google. Pardon me?
He's the best.
Yeah, Bogach is great, and he said yes, and he's going to be on with us next week. And I would like him to talk about, and he tweets a lot about it, about what's happening with Omicron in other parts of the world, where this might be going. Is this just something we're going to have to learn to live with? How do we learn to live with it? All these types of things. And Bogach is great. He can talk about anything. Hopefully he can give us a big chunk of his time, but it was really, really good of him to do this. So he's going to be our speaker next week. And I would like to send out a notice to other Rotary clubs who would like to join us, because he's a pretty high profile guest, and I think is really worth hearing whatever he has to say. Even if you're sick of hearing about it, which I'm sure we all are, I think we all want more information, and he's a great one to give it to us.
All right, so that's next Tuesday at 7:30, Zoom again. Okay, so I have the quote of the week today, and I tried to find something from Betty White, and I found something really funny, but not very appropriate. So if you want to hear that one, you'll have to message me privately, because this does go viral, and I shouldn't probably use that. So I found a different one. So if you want 2022 to be your year, don't sit on the couch and wait for it. Go out and get it. Make a change, be excited, smile more, do new things, throw away what you have been cluttering, unfollow negative people on social media, go to bed early, wake up early, be fierce, show more gratitude, do things that challenge you, be brave. This is going to be a year.
Yeah.
So, all right, if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, then we will call, oh yes, hello Gord, I see you. Hi
No,
Gord.
I'm just saying goodbye.
Oh, okay, bye Gord. All right, we'll call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you guys next week.